Flosstube. My name is Becca, and I am SamBrie Stitches here on YouTube and other social media platforms. This is a Flosstube special edition of Interview with a Flosstuber. I'm actually very excited today because I have been meaning for a long time to email Christine, who is Stitch All the Things. Every time that I go to email her, she's either moving or some life event is happening. But it finally fell into place, and I'm glad that I emailed her when I did, because we have some news to tell you all in just a little bit. So the timing of this interview is perfect.
Yes.
She is not only an amazing crafter. If you've checked out her videos, it's from stitching to quilting and life stuff all throughout her videos. Very uplifting. Absolutely love her content and she's also an incredible human being, and I have to tell this story, and she probably knows what story I'm going to tell. Yeah. It's like one of my favorite memories ever. So we both happened to be at Acorns and Threads at their first Thursday, and it was packed. Like I think there was like 30 plus people.
There was a lot that day.
Yeah, it was crazy. And we were so excited to get to meet each other that we literally hugged each other over the back of Michelle Bendy.
We did. I think I asked her to autograph one of her charts for me, and then we were like, wanted to hug, and she was in the way.
She was just bent over signing something, and we just hugged right over the back. It's like, I love to tell that story because it's one of my most favorite memories that I have.
It actually is what I was going to tell you. It's one of my most favorite stitchy moments too. And I was going to preface that with, I'm not just saying that because I'm on your video. It truly is one of my most favorite memories of a get together with other, stitchy people. And it was just so much fun and awkward and wonderful.
We coined it the awkward hug. So
yes.
In the comments or something, that's what it is. It's our awkward hug.
Yes.
But yeah, that was one of the best days. If you are not familiar with Christine and her channel and all that stuff, the links will be down below, so you can go check it out. Show her some love. And before we jump into the questions, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of talk about your announcement?
Sure. I was born and raised in California. I'm 49. Next year's the big 50. I'm actually excited about that.
Milestone.
Yes, I think I'm going to feel like a real adult when I hit 50. I don't know. I thought that at 40, and still it was like, no, you're still the youngest person in the room. So I don't know, maybe 50 is it for me. I'm married to my husband, Brad. We've been married for to do the math, 12 years, I think. I'm terrible with remembering our anniversary date and how long we've been married. It's sad. He actually made little coasters with our wedding picture and the date on it, so I wouldn't forget. And yet I still struggle. So that's kind of a running joke between us. I have 3 kids. They're all adults. My oldest daughter, she's in Idaho. My middle son, he is in the Navy. He's in Bremerton. My youngest daughter just got married last year, and she's still in California. And I'm a crafty person. I have dabbled in sewing since high school when I had home ec. My mom was, she made our clothes for us when we were kids, but of course it was a thing my mom did. So I had zero interest in sewing whatsoever until much later in life, when I decided to start making crafts and things. And then once I started, that's it. I sew and do all of that, crafty stuff. And now my mom will, make comments on my posts like, it's so beautiful, I love it, I couldn't do that. And I'm like, Mom, I got it from you. I mean, come on now. So I lived in California till about 35, then moved to Arizona and was there for 2009 to 2020, so a little over 11 years, and now I'm in Wyoming.
Yeah, you've moved and seen some things. I did not know that your son is in Bremerton. That's
yes,
where I live. That's awesome.
You're in Bremerton?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I
So
could have
my
seen you when I was there. That's so sad. I didn't know that.
next
Although
time if
it
you
was a
come,
fast trip. It was a
yeah,
really fast trip when we went to see him because I hadn't seen him since he went to Guam in 2020.
okay,
And
wow,
he came back. They've repositioned. So now their home base is Bremerton. They're going to decommission his boat. And I told him, listen, I need to see you. And
okay,
he said, I have 2 days in September. So, but I don't know when it's going to be. So I canceled all of my plans for September and left it wide open for my kid.
good
And
mama.
then it,
What?
yes. And then it was like, okay, these are the 2 days you get. And we just buzzed over and saw him
That's
and
awesome.
then just came back home because it was actually late September. We don't like to be traveling then because Wyoming, the weather is
Weather.
so unpredictable here, and there is always snow in October. And we wanted to get home with our motorhome. So, but I did not realize you were in Bremerton, and now I feel really awful.
Well, hey, if you ever come visit, my husband actually works on PSNS at the shipyard. So
Yeah.
right by the ship, which is funny. So if you ever go visit him again, you got to let me know because
Oh,
that's
I will. You're going to be my second message after Josh.
awesome. So let's talk about your announcement a little bit. We talked before about this, and the reason of this interview is perfect timing. Is because you want to go ahead and share.
I've been doing Flosstube. I'm at the end of my 6th year, and I have decided that this is my last year. So December 31st, the last Sunday of the year, is going to be my last video. And yeah, I was hesitant and unsure if you'd want to do the interview because it's an interview with a Flosstuber, but I'm not going to be a Flosstuber any
Oh,
longer.
you're still a Flosstuber. You have 6 years under your belt, and you're gonna leave your videos up so people can go check them out, right? Yeah.
Yes. And it's not that I don't enjoy doing the floss tube. I do. It takes a lot of time. And I started January. I was kind of going through a little bit of a crisis. Like I didn't feel like my video content was enough. It didn't contribute enough to the community. I didn't do anything other than just show things I'm working on. So I decided in January I would try to add more content that would show how I make things like sewing content or finishing if I could. And then I would decide by the end of the year, how did that go for me? And did it add stress or did it add more enjoyment to the hobby? And then reevaluate how I felt at the end of the year. Because I think at the beginning of 2023, I was just a little overwhelmed and kind of emotional, and I didn't want to make an emotional decision. So I spent this whole year doing videos, and I realized probably about halfway through the year, as I do every year I've done these, that I couldn't keep up with my ideas for the videos. I couldn't keep up with providing more content, and then it would just became pretty stressful. And I think the thing I like most about this hobby, cross stitching and other hobbies, is they're supposed to be relaxing. They're supposed to bring you peace, I feel, and enjoyment. And the aspect of recording everything, having to show progress, in my mind, I felt that way. I don't feel that viewers have any expectation other than they just want to sit and watch and spend time with floss tubers. But for me, I would put expectations like, you said you were going to finish this by this date, you need to get it finished. Or you said you were going to work on this project, you need to work on this project. And then there's always the thought of wanting to show something different each time so people don't get bored. And I think it's funny because I don't think stitchers get bored seeing the same thing. That's
But we
just,
feel like they do. Yeah, I
yes.
get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think just the nature of social media nowadays is that every time you see a video, whether it's Flosstube or whatever else, anytime you see content online, you want to see something different. At least I do.
Yeah.
So anyway, in November, I actually did sit and think about it and do some looking at my notes over the year and realize this is the right time for me to stop doing that, especially because I've taken on some additional commitments and it's time for me to put this hat down, enjoy other floss tubers content for a while, and then have some time for some other things I'd like to do.
Yeah. And that 100% makes sense. I totally get it. Um, I don't quilt and do all the stuff that you do, but same with me. I'm a little over 4 years into Flosstube, and being partnered with different shops and doing the stitch alongs and that kind of stuff, on top of like me being a designer and trying to get that stuff done, it and doing the videos, it gets to be a lot. So I'm sure everybody 100% respects your decision, and it's not like it has to be permanent. If you do decide at some point to ever come back or whatever, like it's always there.
Yeah, yes, my
Get it.
channel will always be there. And the intent is not to take that down. And yeah, you're right. I may just do a check-in every now and then.
Because I think Christy Java Girl had said that too. She was like, I'm not making videos anymore. I need time with my family. And then she came back and kind of did a video. So, it's never 100%, but
Yeah.
I understand, you want to focus on you, and you want to kind of stitch what you want. You could be a monogamous stitcher now, that kind of thing. I'm sure it feels good, but I'm sure you're also going to miss it at the same time. So
Yes, I am curious how next year is going to turn out with my stitching, because the one thing that Flosstube does is it kept me on track
yeah.
with making progress in certain things. Although at the same time, I was telling my husband, I'm really looking forward to stitching on my chatelaine for like an extended period of time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, you'll still be on Instagram posting your pictures and stuff like that, so people can still kind of see what you're doing and check in with you too. So
Yes, absolutely. I'll keep that up, and I accept all Facebook friend requests as long as I can tell that you have some hobby or stitching in common. Then yeah, I accept that, and I do share my stuff on Instagram and let it cross post, mainly because Instagram feels like a scrapbook to me, except I don't have to go, print out pictures and put them in pages. It's like my online scrapbook of my
yeah, I love
things
it.
I finished.
I love it. Yeah, it's a great app. So
Yeah.
but I'm glad that we're doing this interview, because I still wanted people to meet you, get to know you, and then they can still go check out your content. But I also wanted it for selfish reasons, because we're friends, and I wanted that in my interviews. So I'm glad that the timing, I didn't wait.
Well, I'm very honored to be asked. I was really excited when I received your email, and then I was like, oh no, I have to tell her. I wasn't going to tell anyone until I announced it on Christmas Eve. And then I was like, oh no, I have to tell her, because that would be really weird to do this video. And then the same day I post,
Yeah.
I'm not doing this anymore. So
No,
anyway.
no, I definitely still wanted to do it, but I did appreciate the heads up. But no, I'm happy we're doing this. So,
Yes, me too.
well, let's get into the questions and learn a little bit more about you. Well, the first one is, why did you start a floss tube 6 years ago, and were there any particular motivations?
I think at the time, a lot of my favorite floss tubers, Pam and Steph, Stitcherista, they were posting their own floss tube videos, and they just looked like they were having so much fun. I thought, you know what, maybe I'll try that too. And I truly did not expect to do more than one video. My first video is a wreck. And I'll tell you this, for any of your viewers who have not watched my channel, the very first video is the only video I have where I drop an F-bomb. Other than that, my videos are clean, because I realized afterwards, someone made a comment like, I like the video, but if you're going to use that language, I can't watch because my kids are in the room.
Yeah.
And I really thought about that, and I thought, a lot of stitchers do just put these on to play, go, do something. And if they got kids around, well, I do not want to be responsible for teaching children bad words. So I have to put that warning out there. And I think I did somewhere in either the description or the title, so people know this is the only one that has it. So beware. But I was such a nervous wreck in that video. And I really thought I may not do anymore. I don't even know if I'm going to do another one after this. But the response I received was, it was really nice, and everyone seemed to enjoy it and said do another one. And after that, it was just kind of, it just kept going. So I had a lot of fun with it, and I enjoyed sharing the hobby, and so that's how that started.
Yeah, there are some channels that just do the F-bomb a lot, and then there are some that, you know, I try not to do any in mine too, just to be respectful of, yeah, it does autoplay sometimes, or sometimes they have their kids in the room, so I get that for sure.
Yes, I try to be really careful. That's a know your audience thing, and it's such a wide audience that
Yes.
it's better to err on the side of
Yep.
not messing up kids' vocabulary.
I think everybody's first video is just completely awkward, and I know mine was. I think they recorded it. I think I recorded at least a couple of times before I did it, because I just felt like this is really dumb. Like, I'm talking to the camera.
I know.
I felt dumb. It doesn't feel like that, you know, anymore after a couple, but yeah.
Yeah.
First video is awkward and lots of
You're
crazy.
trying to figure it out. And it's funny
Yeah.
because I am more nervous right now on our video doing this, because when I record, I don't have anyone responding or talking back to me. You know, I'm just talking to a camera. So,
well, we're just having a conversation.
yes.
So, how did you come up with your channel name?
Well, it's interesting. I was a quilt blogger before I was a stitcher, and I had a weird kind of quilt blog name for a couple years. It was Reds, because red hair, needles, and thread. And I had started to get into not just quilting, but doing embroidery, doing cross stitch. And I thought I wanted to rebrand the blog name to kind of encompass all of the different types of crafts I was doing. I was sewing bags. And so I thought, well, Stitch All the Things kind of encompasses all of that. And so I named the blog that, and did the kind of a blog rebranding, and then changed my social media to match. And then when I started the Flosstube, it just made sense to carry the same name over.
Yep. That way it's easier to find you kind of everywhere.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I love the name. It
Thank you.
Totally encompasses all the crafts that you do. Perfect.
Yes.
So how did you learn to stitch, and how long have you been stitching?
Well, I decided to start with embroidery back in 2012. I wanted to make my daughter a special quilt for when she graduated in 2014. And what I wanted to do, my idea was to embroider on squares throughout the quilt, just positive and uplifting sayings on that. So I got all of those squares done, and then I still had this urge to stitch, I was done with the project and thought, what do I do now? And Corey Yoder of Coriander Quilts happened to post on Instagram that she was going to be doing a project called Quilty Stitches. And it was cross-stitching little blocks. And I actually have it here because I haven't finished it yet. So it's still in its original thing. But I will say before I show it to you that she wasn't going to start the Quilty Stitches for like, a month and a half, 2 months. You know how people give you time to go get your materials and stuff. So in the meantime, I was like, I need to do something else. And this is the stitch that I ended up finishing. But it's my second stitch, because while I was waiting to start this one, I had picked up a cross stitcher magazine, and there was a pattern of a pink anniversary sampler in it. I think I always mix up the two. It could have been Satsuma Street. I think maybe if I'm wrong, I'll correct that with you later. No, it's Stitch Rovia, because I I actually labeled my piece. Anyway, and it was a pink anniversary sampler called the Love Heart. And I wanted to make it for my husband, but I thought he's not a fan of pink. So I decided to change the colors. And this actually ended up being my very first
That's your
stitching.
very first stitching?
Yes. And here's the funny thing. I looked at this in the magazine and I thought, the hubris of a new stitcher, I could get that done in a couple of weeks, like 2 weeks. It'll take me 2 weeks tops. I mean, it looks super easy, right? And then I started stitching, and probably just this top part and maybe starting a little of this, it was a week. And I realized there's no way I'm going to finish this in 2 weeks. I mean, what was I thinking? And it took me, let's see, I started it April 12th. I stitched only on this. And I finished it May 4th, 3 days before our anniversary. So at least I made it, but
Yes, you did.
this is actually the first piece, but the one that really got me going was that stitch along from Corey Yoder.
Oh, wow. They're both beautiful. But I mean, I guess that from a new stitcher's perspective and looking at it in a magazine or something, it's just like, oh, that doesn't look too big. That doesn't look too crazy. In reality, the stitch count is like.
Right. I don't even remember. I actually looked this morning to see if I still had the issue, and I don't have it. You can get the pattern if you go to Stitch Rovia's, I think their Etsy website. You could still buy the pattern now on its own. But I don't know what the stitch count was, but it had to be a big one. And the funny thing is, my third project was another huge project. I had no idea at the time, the big projects versus smalls, what those were, and the time commitment to make them. And the third one that I started, it was I didn't bring it over, but if anybody has seen my Flosstube, you may remember I finished it's called Burlesque Zombie Portrait. I have it somewhere in the book around here by Phil Harrison, I think. It's in a book called Twisted Stitches. And I started stitching by stitching things I liked without regard for how many floss colors are in it, if it's full coverage or not, because I didn't know those things. And that's the piece that taught me that I do not like full coverage, and I do not like charts that have a bunch of confetti in them.
That was an amazing. I remember your progress on that.
Yeah, it took a long time. That was the third one. And when that was done, I was just so happy.
Yeah, I remember that. That's awesome. That's a cool chart though.
Yeah, I'm still looking. It's not finished because I'd really like to find an oval frame to put it in, and those are so difficult to find. So I hunt whenever we go to thrift stores or antique stores. I'll find it eventually, but until then, she's just rolled up in your, what do they call that, under the bed box?
Under the bed box. Yep. Yep. That perfect frame will be there eventually when it's ready to be put out on display.
She's not everyone's cup of tea, that's for sure. But for some reason, I was just really drawn to that chart.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. So speaking of your first three, what's your favorite project that you've stitched so far?
Okay, I actually did take this off the wall and bring it over here, and it's huge. So it is the oh my goodness, what's the name? I call it my Headless Horseman piece. This is a Glendon Place piece, but
oh yeah,
I forgot. I don't know why I can't think of the name, but this is from Glendon Place, and this is one of my favorite pieces. I'm sorry, you can see the reflection in everything because I chose conservation glass, conservation clear, not museum, because museum glass was expensive. But yes, this is the one, and it hangs year round on my wall.
Are those skulls on the frame?
Yes.
That is so.
And there's spiders and webs, and then little bones going across.
I have never seen a frame like that. That's so cool. That's perfect.
Yeah. And then I had it framed by Jill Rensel. So, they, there. Yeah, they paint the mat. So they painted like fire there. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is the one. This is my favorite piece. I immediately thought of it when I read that question.
that is incredible. I see quite a few people. That's a popular chart, so people will know the name of it. I can't think of the name of it either,
Yeah,
but
I should have written it down.
I
I
think
just
Headless
wrote down
Horseman,
Headless Horseman, so I don't know why I can't think of it.
nah, it is one place they can find it, but it's
Yes.
that was stunning. That frame, oh my gosh, I need to have a piece of some piece. Maybe when I finish my Lady of the Flag, have Jill Rensel because that's incredible.
Yes, I plan on that for her too. I send the ones that I don't know, are kind of more meaningful to me or really important.
Yeah.
I've only had 2 done by her, but those were I don't know why, just a little extra special.
Yeah, that frame though, like no, Hobby Lobby or Joann's or something is not going to have a frame like that. That was just perfect. I love
And
it.
it's funny, I saw like a thin black frame online that was just skulls. And I messaged her and when I sent the thing and said, I'd really like this frame. And she sent a picture with this one and I went, oh no, I want that one. That's the one.
No, 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 dear, this one.
Yes, because I didn't know there were options either. I just happened to be like, I saw this framing wood, whatever you call that, online, and I don't know, is that something you have in your shop? And I think she actually sent me 3 options, but that's just the one. I'm like, that has everything. Has the skull, the webs, because there's stitching on it that is spider web. So anyway,
Perfect.
that's the one.
Perfect. I love it. So what do you enjoy most about stitching?
Well, I continued stitching after I finished my projects because I enjoyed that downtime in the evening with my husband. We like to just sit after dinner and watch TV, but I enjoyed having something to do with my hands because prior to that I would just either read a book, which would kind of annoy him because if he's into the TV show and he starts talking about it, I'm not there. I'm in my book. So we couldn't have conversations going because I would kind of check out. And or if I wasn't reading a book, I was just playing games on my phone and it was kind of just brainless stuff. So I really liked having something to do with my hands and then creating really beautiful things. And at the time, life was pretty stressful for me. I had some other personal things going on, conflict in other areas of my life. And stitching was a way for me to just calm my brain, calm my heart, and just de-stress. And I still, to this day, if I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, it's my go-to. Just sit and try to get everything out of my head. And I think that's what I really like about it, is it really is supposed to be something that helps you just de-stress and relax.
Yeah, yeah, and that is what cross stitch means to a lot of stitchers that I've talked to. It still blows my mind, and I say this a lot when like I bring my stitching with me everywhere. If I'm at an oil change or when I was working a break at work, I'd be stitching, and you would get people that I just don't have the patience for that. I'm like, it gives you the patience. Like if you just try it, it gives you that calm, it gives you that peace of mind, the focus. But it's just everybody's so quick to, I don't have patience for that kind of thing, and that's what it
Yeah.
gives you. Like it just makes everything go away. It was just simple little X's. It blows my mind still, and I've been stitching for 25 plus years, but it just yeah, I think it's incredible, and I love
Yeah.
how it can just make you forget what's going on for just a little bit at least, where you're not thinking about the stress and the bad stuff that's happening. So
Yeah, I think a lot of society always, maybe this is US society in particular, because I know there are other countries where you are allowed to relax and have downtime, time for yourself, time to reset. My sister lives in the Netherlands and she often says, they have times where they're sort of required to take vacation so they can reset and come back at the new year refreshed, ready for work. And I think here there's a lot of pressure to always be doing something. Or even maybe it's generational, maybe it's in my family, but I feel like there's always pressure to be working, to be productive, to show that you're doing something all the time. And this is considered not productive. And I think it's very important that we get to be able to take time for ourselves, take time to reset ourselves, because I feel like if you're working all the time, you're wearing yourself out and you're not able to give to those around you, provide well for those around you, the best parts of you. You need to be able to reset yourself, refresh yourself. And I feel like this is one of those, I call it a hobby, but I think it's a really good way to just kind of take a little time for you, take the breath you need, and then get on with the busy parts, the responsibilities of your life after you've been able to refresh. And I think that needs to be, I shouldn't say I think it needs to be. I would hope that over time, it gets to be more common that people are allowed to take that time for themselves and just refresh a bit and let some of the stress of everyday life go.
Yep. Mental health is important. And if you're going nonstop and not taking time for yourself just to take a little break and kind of decompress, it can get pretty bad. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, I wish our country did something like that, where it was just mandated, you need vacation or you need downtime.
Yeah, I was really surprised when she told me. It's like, I can't remember how long it is, but over their holiday period, it's like, go home, go spend time with your family. And I thought that's really nice. I think we should look to other cultures and countries sometime and
Yeah,
take on some of their, you're allowed to rest and reset and refresh.
yeah, because everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Sure. So we're gonna get out of Stitchy talk a little bit and kind of learn a little bit more about you.
Okay.
Since you mentioned that you were reading, in the evening, do you have a favorite genre of book or movie?
Well, okay, I do love books and I have switched from reading them. I love to read books. I should say this, when I read a book, I disappear completely from the world around me. I could be sitting right next to someone, and if I'm reading a book, they could be having a conversation with me, and I don't see them, I don't hear them. I'm in the world of the book. But I realized if I want to get all these hobbies done that I enjoy so much, I don't have time to read. So
Yeah,
I switched to audiobooks, which really took me some time to get into. I have found that I don't get to dive into the worlds that I enjoy so much because I'm listening to someone narrate them, but I have found a good balance of being able to appreciate the stories as someone reads them to me. But the books, I'm not, I don't know if I'm a normal person for book reading or not, but I grew up with Stephen King. So horror is my first love. Um, Over time, it's kind of shifted. I'm always down for a good mystery, suspense, and for some reason, the last few years seems to be more urban fantasy. So stories like Kim Harrison's The Hollow series, or Patricia Briggs's Alpha and Omega, or Mercy Thompson series. I'm really into those right now.
so I love this question. If you could choose to do anything for a day, what would it be?
Well, for me, it would actually be to spend a day with my kids, all three kids, because we're also so far away. I've got a kid in each state on the West Coast, and I don't get to see them hardly at all unless I go to them. So what would be an amazing day is just to have them all with me for a day, and we probably, I don't know, bake some cookies and play games and talk and catch up. That would be a perfect day for me right now.
Yeah, I get that. Now I really get that because my older daughter moved to Canada. So she's a
Oh
3 days
yeah,
from us. So
that's
I'm
hard.
so don't get to see her like, when she used to live just a few minutes down the road. So I totally, that sounds like the perfect day, just having the family all together. Nobody has to go to work. Nobody has to do anything. You just hang out together. It's perfect.
Yes.
Love it. So we've alluded to this, but we're going to get into it a little bit more. Do you have any other hobbies besides cross stitch?
Yes. I love to sew, and I typically, I started with quilting. And of course, how I started with quilting is wanting to make my daughter a quilt for her high school gift. And I had 2 years to prepare for that. So I made a practice quilt so I would know how to do it by the time her quilt came around. And I thought, if I start now, I'll have plenty of time. And I barely got her quilt finished because I just started quilting a whole bunch, making a whole bunch of other quilts. And hers was like put aside, and I got it done, but barely. And then I like making bags. I made project bags for a while. And I made those so much, I really got burned out on sewing. It took me like 6 months to want to sit down at my sewing machine again and do anything. So now I kind of make them occasionally, purses, kind of bags, those kinds of things. But yeah, I love playing around with my sewing machine and making that stuff. Right now, I seem to really be into doing wool applique. So for that, it's not even so much using my sewing machine. And I got a block just to share. I
Oh, that's so cool.
This is one of the blocks in the Buttermilk Basin's free block of the month. So you can download the pattern for free each month, but I ordered the kits because I like them. And so I've really found that I enjoy, just like with cross stitching, this is hand stitching the pieces down, and I've really come to enjoy that just slower kind of work in making quilts and stuff.
Yep. I fell down that rabbit hole. I bought little kits, and they're just like the little, what are they called? Penny rugs or something, like the little penny.
Oh, like penny mats and things.
Yeah. I haven't done that in a while. I don't know. I should get back to that now that you just showed the whole.
Like, I go back and forth. Sometimes I'm more focused on, I just want to do cross stitching right now. Yeah. And then other times someone will show a project, and then like that takes me down that rabbit hole. Oh, I want to make that. And so, yeah.
That's awesome.
I only work on this on Thursdays though. I found a local group here, and they're called the Thursday Stitchers. And I realized I could spend a few hours, it's like 9 to 2, and we meet at the library. And that's my dedicated work on the hand quilting kind of stuff. And so I thought, this is really nice. I have a dedicated time once a week, and I can squeeze in another hobby.
Yep, that's perfect. And now, you're able to do it whenever you want. I mean, still, you can sew that on your Flosstube and stuff like that too, but at least you can focus on it.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably something you can't really mess up while you're talking, because I know my stitching meetups, which I actually have one tonight, if I don't bring fill in, I end up frogging because I'm talking and I'm stitching and not counting. So
exactly, doing these blanket stitches is just, it's a simple, easy thing. And yeah, and we jabber as when people get together, you just talk the whole time. It's wonderful.
Well, I'm glad you have a group there. That's pretty neat.
Yes, me too.
Okay, this is one of my most favorite questions. It's, how would your friends describe you?
Okay, I wasn't sure. My first inclination is to say awkward and weird. But I told my husband that, and I said, maybe that's my insecurity showing, because that's how I feel, in a big group of people. I'm one of those oversharers. So I can be in a group and I don't know, maybe I was like this with you guys, and I just say too much personal stuff way too soon. But I think probably, I would hope they would say I was kind and friendly and helpful. Asked my husband, he said the very first word that came to mind when I met you was empathetic. And if people were to ask me today, I would say the same thing. So I don't know. I hope you're my friend. What do you think?
Really not the awkward part. I would say empathetic. Yes. You're friendly.
But I did do the awkward thing with you. So I mean, it
But
kind of holds true.
I was there too. So I think it was just the in the moment excitement.
Yes.
For us, it was in the moment excitement.
Yes. Poor Michelle.
I don't know if she still remembers or not. I don't even know if she noticed. I don't remember what happened afterwards.
I don't know. I don't remember. I was just too excited to meet you.
I know, that was awesome. No, I like asking this question just because most people don't really think about it. And it's kind of nice every so often to hear nice things. So
yeah.
So how do you prefer to stitch? Do you use like a hoop, Q-snap, scroll frame, and hand?
I tend to like to put my pieces on roll of frames, the split rods with the little tacks, and then I put that on a floor stand next to me, and I have to stitch with an LED magnifier lamp because I cannot see. So that's mostly how I stitch when I sit here. When I take stuff with me, it's small pieces and I'll either stitch them in hand, and I stitch badly in hand. So whatever piece I take is one that I don't really care to keep as an heirloom. It's just, I like this chart. I want to stitch it. I need something to do with my hands. Or I'll take it in a Q-snap, but it's usually a small, like it'll fit in an 8x8 Q-snap. But that's pretty much how I stitch. I started out with the bigger Q-snaps, and I realized I was damaging my fabric. Even if I put batting on it, I would still get those creases, and I wasn't able to get them out. As long as you have a big enough border, and I learned this, it wouldn't be a problem if it fit exactly the Q-snap in the middle. And then one of my pieces I did was a Clouds Factory piece, and I forget what it's called, like witchy stitches or something like that. And I used a floss that said it's color fast, and I washed it afterwards because I wanted to get all the wrinkles out for my Q-snap. And when I washed it, the color, one floss color that specific, because I looked specifically, it says color fast, it ran everywhere. And so at that point, I realized I need to find a way to where I don't get these creases on my fabrics and I don't feel like I have to wash them at the end. And that's when I switched to rods. And then of course, everybody, you go through the process of trying a whole bunch of different kinds of rods till you find the one that works for you. And that one ended up being the best for me. So I like to try to keep them on that, keeps them nice and clean and wrinkle free.
Sense. Wow. That would break my heart if I had a floss that ran. And
yeah, it was a really deep, I know the floss color and the brand, but I don't want to name names, Yeah. So, but it was a really nice purpley color, and so I was able to save it with using color catchers, soaking it, but that purple became a really light purple, and I actually bought a new thing of floss to restitch it all, and I kept it in my bin for the longest time, and just it felt like such a huge task that finally I thought, you know what, it's good enough, and I just finished it and put it on the wall, and it looks fine. I don't mind it, and yeah, I'm glad it's done finally.
I'm glad you were able to save it. That's the thing, because I could not imagine that.
Yeah, I don't trust reds, even if they say they're color fast. But this purple, I was like, oh, that should be fine. But yeah, lesson learned. And it's good to learn those lessons early on in your stitching, because it was probably the 5th or 6th piece I started. So learn them early, and then you don't carry them way later.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have like a preferred fabric that you lean towards when you're stitching, or just whatever?
I tend to stick with 32 count, And if it's linen, I like linen or I like Lugana, and I'll do Jobelan too, but that's a little stretchy for me. So I tend to prefer like the Lugana even weave, and overdyes is fine. Any of that's fine. And if it's linen, I really prefer Zweigert over Witchelt because Witchelt feels really stiff to me, and I have a hard time with it. So um yeah, linen or even weave doesn't really super matter, but if I'm buying it myself and not getting it as part of a kit or whatever, I'll typically choose the Lugana.
Um, so do you have a favorite place that you've traveled to, and did you bring any stitching along when you went?
Well, I'm like you. I do always have stitching with me, always in my purse. And probably my favorite place we traveled was right before COVID. We went on an early Christmas cruise to Hawaii, and it was 2 weeks. And I did stitch. I actually brought a project brand new to, and I got it out because I remembered it, and also not finished, but I was working on this one from oops, Silver Creek Samplers. And yeah, I started this on the cruise and I finished it on the cruise. And the funny thing was, I kept looking to see if any other people there were stitching, and I found one other person. And I was so excited. I went up and I asked her, "What are you stitching on? And what are you doing?" And I don't think she expected it, because she was like, "Who are you? And why are you talking to me?" So I left her alone the rest of the cruise, because it was probably a weird moment, this woman running up to you. And, but yeah, I think it's fun, and it's relaxing to do this, and is listening to audiobooks and sitting out just stitching away.
I That's crazy that she was just like, whatever, because my husband hikes, and because of my health stuff the past few years, I can't really do a lot of hiking. So Hurricane Ridge is a very popular area for people traveling from all over the world. This is this beautiful hiking area up in the mountains. And so what I did was I brought my stitching and I just sat on a bench and kind of just watched people and the scenery and stitched away at while my husband was hiking. And I cannot even count how many times people walked past me and stopped and looked over my shoulder and said, "Don't mind me, I'm just seeing what you're doing." Or other stitchers that were like, "I didn't even think to bring my stitching." And it was the coolest thing ever, because as stitchers, we want to see other stitchers in the wild. It's like the
Yes.
or spread the love of stitching, because if I'm in the waiting area at the car dealership while my Jeep is getting oil change, I'm stitching. Like, I have my full setup. I look like I'm stitching at home. I have my light, I have my stand, like I bring everything in my bag, because it's going to be an hour or two sitting there, because
Yeah.
and it'll strike up conversations with other people in the waiting area. And then you'll learn about people who used to stitch, or my grandma stitches, or, it's just something that strikes up a conversation. So
Yes.
that's that's the incredible thing about the stitching community. So that's kind of funny that the lady was like,
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised, because I had that expectation that
yeah.
it would be like we'd be instant best friends now. And no, that did not happen.
Okay, so what can you not do without for your stitching? Like your favorite go-to must-have besides the basics?
Okay, I had like a list. So I narrowed it down to two. I hope I can share two.
Oh
The
yeah,
first one is my Loran needle threader, except this is just some off brand. I got a pack of 50 on eBay, but it's this needle threader.
I use
And
that.
I use it because when I stitch, I will stitch down to like the last 3/4 of an inch. And I need this to pull the floss through my needle, because now it's too short to get to the end of my needle. I use this all the time.
Yeah.
So if I don't have one of these with me, I am just I sometimes I'm like, I can't stitch.
You know what I do with those? Because I use that same exact one. You know the hole there? I
Yeah.
put in a scissor fob. I'll clip a scissor fob in there, because they're so tiny that I kept losing them. But
Oh yeah.
if I put a scissor fob like clipped on there, you've got that, it's a little bit harder for them to like slip down and fall. That's
Yes.
all of mine have little scissor fobs because I have so many of those.
You know what? I'm really glad you said that. I'm going to do that because I have gotten more scissor fobs than scissors. That's just a tragedy. I know. So, but you're right. Mine will fall off. I usually use the back of my needle minder, but sometimes they'll fall off. Or when I'm out at the stitching group, I'm always losing them. So I'm going to do that
Yep.
because that's a great idea. My second thing is my hands are always rough, and I'm always catching my hands on my floss. And when I'm working with silks, I'm working on Flowers of the Holy Night right now. So before I even start, I have to use my gloves in a bottle. Anytime I'm stitching, it's gloves in a bottle. But then I got in a stitchy box a while back. I want to say it was a I don't know. I think it was a fat quarter shop thing, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure. But Stitcher's lotion is the one that's in my travel crafting thing. So it's always lotion and always that needle threader. Those are my two that are by me all the time.
I've never heard of gloves in a bottle, but that Stitcher's lotion, like Acorns and Thread sells it. So I had bought a bottle there. But isn't it the most annoying thing when you're stitching and then it gets caught and then it pulls out of your needle?
Yes.
And
And
then
I get little cracks on my thumb all the time, the splits. As a matter of fact, I was doing finishing. I've been stitching cording onto little ornament finishes, and it keeps catching the cording and pulling one thread out of the cord. And yesterday that happened. I was so annoyed. I'm like, oh, my hands. But they're just rough all the time from dishes or whatever. So I'm always putting the lotion on, but especially when I stitch, I really lotion up good. So yeah, those are I have to have these.
Yeah, that lotion is it's amazing.
Yeah.
So this I'm always curious how our stitcher brains work. How do you decide on what you're going to work on next?
Well, at the end of every year, I usually do a video that talks about all the stuff I did during the year. So I do a little whip parade, and then I show all the things I stitched or fully finished or whatever. And at that time, I decide what I want to stitch for next year, what the goal is. And at the end of 2022, my goal for this year was to stitch 12 Christmas ornaments. And then I decided to join WhipGo for the first time ever. And that way I could figure out how to work on my whips and kind of get those worked in. My stitching brain has switched from working on really big projects to doing smalls. And so throughout the year, of course, my channel, trying to keep fresh content all the time, trying to show something new. That's my biggest motivator for getting stitching done. And I tried to keep with the plan. And I did end up making it at the end of the year. The summers for me always go haywire because something's always happening. And my plans always fall apart, usually by April or May. Every year, all my intentions just kind of go out the window. I did manage to finish the year with 12 ornaments stitched. I'm finishing them the next week or two. So that was really good. But WhipGo, I failed on WhipGo this year. So I just sort of, to finish out the year, looked at what was a big finish I wanted to get done since I was able to actually make the goal of ornaments. And I saw one piece and I thought, this is going to be the Flowers of the Holy Night. I'm almost done. I'm going to work on that. So in the past, it's just been a try to keep doing something new or showing something different in every video. But I have no idea what kind of stitcher I'm really going to be now that I've got some years of experience with stitching. I think I've been stitching I really started in 2014. So 9 years of stitching. I have no idea what I'm going to do without any sort of pressure I put on myself to get certain things done.
Yeah, it'll be like an exciting new adventure discovering who you are as a stitcher all over again. Really.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm curious if I really will get tired of stitching on a big project for a long period of time, or if I will enjoy that. I've never really sort of figured out, would I enjoy being like a monogamous stitcher, or do I always have to have something different to work on myself? So without any sort of obligation I put on myself to have a finish or progress, I really am curious. I'll have to let you know later.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of what I think I've been thinking about, and not thinking about quitting Flosstube or anything right now, at least. But like, I started a full coverage. Well, kind of. I started a Heaven and Earth design, and it's this dream catcher with like a elk and a wolf, and it's really pretty. And I started it, and I just felt the urge, like all I wanted to do was work on that. Like I wanted to focus on that. But I'm like,
Mhm.
can't, because, even if I put in 1,000 stitches on that, it doesn't look like, I'm not going to show that, every video and be like, here's 1,000 stitches, but it's not changing. You know what I mean?
Right,
And,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
And so like, it's calling to me, and I feel like I want to focus on it, but obviously I can't, because I do have other stuff that I need to get done to, show progress. And so I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. I think it would be exciting to be able to figure out who you are as a stitcher now, um, as opposed to who you were before you started the Flosstube channel, because we all change
Right.
and grow. So it'll be neat to see, what you do.
Right. And the answer
You
will
do.
likely be on my Instagram
Yes.
if I'm just sharing progress on just one thing, or if I start hopping around again, then we'll all know. She needs something different.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never even thought about that. So we're actually down to the last question already, but
Okay.
before we get to the last question, just curious if there's something that you want to share that not many people know about you.
Uh, well, I was actually thinking about this, and the funny thing is, all of the most embarrassing things that have ever happened to me in my life kept popping in my head. And remember, I said I'm an overshare. Don't worry, I'm not going to share anything embarrassing. I actually went to my husband and I said, I'm a really boring person. I don't and I share everything. So I don't know if there's anything about me that people don't already know. And he laughed. He said, "Give me a minute to think about it." And then he looked at me and he said, "You do have one thing." And that one thing is that I actually have an amateur radio license. I am a general class amateur radio, that people call it ham radio for short. And I actually don't operate the radio at all since I got my license. The only reason I got my license is when I met my husband, his friend group were amateur radio operators. And so they get together every Tuesday night. And I really got tired of being embarrassed of being introduced as, this is my wife, Christine. She doesn't have an amateur radio license.
Wow,
I
that's
was the only one
right
because,
there.
yeah, because that is the question when you're in a group of ham people. See, I don't even know the lingo. Um,
You
you
got the
know,
license.
yeah, it's what's your call sign. And so he would just kind of preempt that in the beginning that she doesn't have one. So I took the test. I studied for 2 weeks straight. I stopped everything. And if I'm going to do something, I tend to be, my personality is, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right. And so everything stopped for 2 weeks. I studied for this test. And there's 3 different levels now. My husband was grandfathered in at whatever his class is. I forget. But I think there's technician, general, and expert. And so I took the technician and the general test same day because I was ready. And I came home. As I came home from, either that test or something else, my husband met me in the driveway and said, and I got 100 on each test. So as I came home, my husband said, you have to retake the general test. And I thought he was joking. And I was like, oh, how funny. I got 100. And he goes, no, they gave you the wrong test. It was last year's test. You really have to go back and take the test again. And I just started crying because I was like, do you know how hard it was to study for this test? And actually, it's easy nowadays because before you used to have to take a Morse code test to get your license. You don't have to do that anymore. So I tried to learn Morse code too, just to say I know Morse code, but I got bored because, you know, I wanted to get back to quilting and whatever. So I don't know Morse, but yeah, I had to go back and take it. And then I was so mad because I got one wrong. 100 on last year's, or on the year before, but one wrong on the current test. So yeah, I have gotten on the radio though, and I've talked to people, and it's really fun and pretty cool depending on solar flares, what the sun's doing, how clear the conditions are, that you can just through an antenna talk to somebody on the other side of the world. And it's pretty cool. A lot of it has gone digital though, and so my husband doesn't do a lot of radio calls anymore because he's old school. He's like, I really like the thought of just through the airwaves being able to talk to someone else on the other side of the world. So he's got a lot of cards and stuff from people he's contacted, and it's interesting, but I get nervous because I forget the lingo and I say the wrong things. And if anybody out there of your viewers is an amateur radio, they'll probably laugh at this. There was a sort of event where in Havasu, where the group got together, all of the amateur radio operators, and they were working some sort of event. So people from all over would call in so they could, you know, get it noted that they were able to make a contact. Now, women radio operators are pretty rare, so they like to try to get that contact in their book, in their records, whatever, that they made a contact. So my call sign is N7QOK. And I got so nervous that I told him, and you have to say it phonetically. So November 7, Quebec, Oscar, Kilo. I got so nervous, I said November 7, Q0K. And everybody on the radio, and you've got like a bunch of people trying to make contact at once. So you have to kind of weed through everyone's talking at the same time, but you could hear a ripple of laughter go through. And the person I was contacting, he was really nice. And he said, did you mean N7QOK? And I was just so embarrassed. So if you've got any amateur radio operators out there, they will get a chuckle out of that. But yeah, after that, I looked at whoever was running the event and I was like, I'm done. I'm out. I was so embarrassed. I messed it up.
That is incredible. My husband's old school with stuff too. I get that. I think technology is a blessing and a curse all at the same time because you lose a lot of the older things like that, you know, and that's just incredible to even think that an antenna could reach that far. You know what I mean? Like that blows my mind.
Yeah. Yes. It is pretty cool. And when we moved from Havasu, we had the antenna on top of one of our garages and we had to get up there and take it down. And I'm terrified of heights. So my husband went up there and it was windy because it's always windy there. But it's a flat roof. There are flat roofs in Arizona and there's like a little wall around the top of the roof. So it's not just completely flat. There's like a little 18-inch wall. So I told him, oh, I'll come up and help you. Now, getting up on a roof is not a problem for me. I'm scared of heights, but it's the getting down part. And I actually got stuck on the roof for probably 15-20 minutes, crying my eyes out because I was too scared to get down after we, you know, finally got it all down. And he's standing at the bottom like, what can I do? And I'm thinking, you just bring me a pillow and a blanket, or you're going to have to call the fire department And then I'm realizing they're going to get me down with the ladder too. So you got to figure this out. So I eventually got down, but after that, we haven't put it up here because I am not ready to go there with, again with the ladder.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you one bit.
All right,
But
I'm sorry, I rambled
glad
way
you made
long.
it down off the roof though. No,
Yeah.
love stories like that. That's that's great. Well, hopefully you get it up though, so that you can, well, at least your husband can,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hire someone. He does not need to be trying to get up on a roof around
yeah,
here.
yeah. Well, I freak out because my husband will put the ladder on our deck and get up on the roof, and I'm like, let's not do that. Let's hire a professional that's gonna,
Yes.
that's insured to do that. And
Yes.
yeah, I have major heart attacks every time. And it was raining. We had like a plumbing issue. And so he went up on the roof in the rain,
Oh my goodness.
like try to unclog whatever things are up there. And I'm standing on the deck getting soaked because I'm just watching.
Right? You have to be around though. I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, I'm here at the ladder, but my phone is here in case you fall and I have to call 911.
100%. Yep. Crazy husbands.
Yes. It's those DIYers that have to do it themselves. And they're like, I don't want to pay anybody to do this. And I'm like, please, please pay somebody to do this.
Hopefully we'll get to that point soon.
Yeah.
I don't like him getting up on the roof.
No.
Yeah. All right. My most favorite question that I leave to the end. The past couple of years, past few years have been kind of rough, with the pandemic and everything. So what is the best thing that has happened to you within the past couple of years?
I would say probably moving to Wyoming. Basically my most favorite times when we were in Arizona was actually when we went up to Oregon and visited you guys. Visited all my Stitchy people, my friends. The community where I could connect with people was in Oregon. But in Arizona, I didn't really have that. I mean, we had his radio people that we would have dinners with, and that kind of petered out for a while. So there was no real in-person connections for me with other stitchers, quilters. And when we moved here, the first day we moved here actually and got the house, we weren't in the house. We were in the motorhome parked next to the house. And one of the neighbors down the street came walking by. And I think Brad had some of my quilty stuff in his hand. I don't know. And she looked at him and she said, "Did your wife sew?" And he's hollering at me. I'm like, when you're moving, you're just like greasy hair. It's been days. You just want to go inside, get a shower, but no, you got to unpack so you're dirty and you look terrible. And he's yelling at me, "Come out here." And I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy, please no. But I go out and she says, "There is a group of quilters and you need to come to the next meetup." And my very first day here, I'd already found a community of people. And I think here life is a little bit slower, and I've needed that slower pace after kind of a bit of chaos before, and just life being busy and crazy. And so I like that everything is slowed down up here. I mean, you could be out driving, and I'm telling you, these Wyoming drivers, it's like a Sunday drive every day. So it's, unless you're in a rush to get somewhere, no one ever is. So I kind of like the slower pace. That's been helpful. And then finding a community of people, quilters, and then of course the stitchers, where I get to meet with them once a week, has just really helped my heart, helped my soul. And I've really enjoyed that a lot, just finding some people here. Of course, I know that when I go to visit Oregon, I got my peoples over there too. Yep. You guys are all over there. And I'm excited to finally have some time where we can go do some travel and visit our friends and people in other areas. But I think I really like that we just found a bit of a slower pace. life here, and that I found a community of really uplifting, great hobbyists, stitchers and quilters. It's really nice. I think that's probably the best thing.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling to have fellow, I guess for me, fellow cross stitchers, crafters, because I have a group too. And because when I first started like my floss tube, I was in a really dark place. Like I felt my real friends in real life kind of, were using me, and it was really bad. And when I started going to First Thursdays and stuff like that, having those just stitchers, even though I had just met them in my life and becoming friends with them, has really changed me. So it's an absolutely amazing feeling to have at least one other friend in the area. And I know a lot of people will leave comments like on my videos because I share my stitching group in my videos and stuff, and even on Instagram, that they don't have anybody where they're at. And I always just say, put it out on social media. Put it out on
Yeah.
social media. You're in this area. Is there anybody else, in the area? Because my group started from a random, somebody made a comment in one of the stitching Facebook groups, and I was reading through the comments, and there was somebody else who said, I live in Bremerton, Washington. Turns out she literally was like right down the road from me.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, like so people who don't think that there are other stitchers near them, there could be. You just have to put it out there. Like yours was just by chance that your husband was carrying in your quilting stuff, and the lady was like,
Yeah.
what? Things like that. Bring your stitching with you wherever you go, because you never know if, there's another stitcher, in the doctor's office or something.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is too, is I find that a lot of within the groups, hobbies cross over. So if there's a quilters group in the area that meets up, even I would ask them, hey, can I bring my hand stitching? Because our quilters group, even though it says it's the quilt chicks, half of us cross stitch and go there because we don't want to lug our sewing machines to the library. So, we do handwork, and some people were only quilters and then they see us working on cross stitch, so they want to learn. So yeah, I agree. I think it's so important to find that like-minded community of people, and not just that, people who are uplifting and encouraging. Because there was a group of quilters in Havasu, and I went once and I'm never coming back here, because they just were very cliquish, and it was very, in some cases, a little narrow-minded with well, you can only be this kind of quilter, and judging kind of that stuff. So your peoples are out there. And I think for some people it's really nice. I do like that there's Flosstube, because when they do have, they're more rural, or they don't have the ability to go, their people are online. And I really have made wonderful friendships from people I have never met in person, simply because they found a community online. And so I thank you for the opportunity to do this interview, and for all of your other interviews, giving people the chance to meet and see other people and get to know them through this way. I think it's so important that a connection can be made somehow.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just don't feel alone. There's people out there.
Yep, there are. And there's Zoom. I mean, so many Zoom groups. I in my Facebook group, I host a monthly Zoom. And it's just nice to connect with people. So there's always some way to connect. It's a little different over Zoom than it is in person, but it's still you're still with stitchers. So
Right. And there's a conversation still happening. And that's actually another thing I'm kind of looking forward to with some extra time, is I get to catch up with other stitchers floss tubes. I get to join in on Zooms now, because I haven't had time for a lot of things like that before.
yeah.
And it's kind of funny because one of the quilters in my quilt group, she's a teacher at the local high school. She teaches a fashion arts class. So they do sewing in there. And we were just at this, at our Christmas party get together. And she's like, I am so overwhelmed. I need help in my classroom. And I said, well, I can come in. I'll volunteer to come in, because one of the things I wanted to do is find more time to volunteer in the community here. Now that we've been here long enough, I'd like to find ways to contribute, so I don't feel like I'm just a selfish sewer or stitcher, like I'm doing something to help benefit the community. And so she said, really, you'll come? And I said, yeah, if you guys will let us volunteer. And she said, absolutely. So I started this past week. I told my husband, it's my first day of school on Monday. Because I actually was going back to school, and so that was fun. But yeah, I'm excited for some extra time to do that kind of stuff, to help kids carry on the tradition of sewing. And maybe I can sneak some cross stitch into the class or something and bring that to the kids.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I mean, you're going to have a lot of time. I'm so glad that you're able to focus on you and kind of rediscover who you are as a crafter. The community, the Flosstube community will miss you, but I'm glad that you're leaving your videos up so that, you have 6 years worth of videos. So people will have plenty to watch.
There's a lot. I think when I was looking and counting the dates, and I think I'm going to be ending on my 399th video.
Okay, there you go. Wow. And done, just 399. Love it. No, there's plenty of content. I am so glad that we got the interview, done before you ended Flosstube, because I just really feel that you're an incredible person, and I'm I wanted people to kind of know a little bit more about you, and the timing was just perfect.
It worked out well. Thank you so much. Truly, it's an honor to be on here with you and have this conversation. And I missed you. So it's been wonderful to chat with you for a while.
Talking forever. And hopefully everybody enjoyed it, because this is going up on Christmas Eve. So Merry Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to everybody if you celebrate. I hope you enjoyed us chatting and keeping you company, and a little bit of advice and life stuff thrown in there as well. So
Yeah. Yes.
yeah. But thank you for taking time out of your day to do this and to catch up. And I've missed you. And our awkward hug when you come back into the area, we'll need another one.
Yes. Well, we need that. We're gonna have to. I can make any moment really awkward. So I've got us.
Okay. We'll say bye to everybody on Flosstube.
Bye.